Hi, everyone. Vasu Vaddiparty here, not from Phoenix, Arizona, but from San Jose, California, the home office for this week's edition of the VPartySports Podcast. We're here with you 3 or 4 times a week. The Super Bowl's this weekend. As you know, the big preview for the Eagles and the Chiefs. We'll have a big preview show on Sunday afternoon before kickoff. We'll get all the injury reports. We'll get all the latest updates. We'll get everything you need to know for the proper information to make your sports wagers and sports bets. Lots of props. I counted them yesterday. Actually, I didn't count them, but there were over 200 proposition bets in the NFL. And I've got a few that I'll bring to you on Sunday as well, too, that I like besides the game in and of itself. But we'll get to all that in a little bit. Let's talk about the NFL honors last night. What a night it was for the NFL to showcase the things that they do off the field, the good play on the field. Just the important categories. The important category was George Kittle, Kirk Cousins, and Cameron Jordan singing with Kelly Clarkson. That was pretty entertaining, I have to admit. I'm not really an awards show guy, but I got to think that was a pretty entertaining segment for especially George Kittle. George Kittle's a very funny guy. I live in the Bay Area, so I see him around quite a bit in terms of local coverage, and he is a very funny guy, and he just loves life, and there's nothing that he won't do for this game. But he was good. Kirk Cousins was good. He wore all his chains. Cameron Jordan was good too, as well. And they had the awards show. They had the awards. Kelly Clarkson was great. She sang and she had her band there, and everything was all good. The important categories for winning: Patrick Mahomes won the MVP last night. Brian Dable won the Coach of the Year, the New York Giants. Their turnaround. Patrick Mahomes obviously not there last night, but he did get the MVP over Josh Allen. And I couldn't remember who the third nominee was, but Brian Dable beat out Doug Peterson, Kyle Shanahan for Coach of the Year. The New York Giants turnaround, obviously a big one there for them getting the playoffs, and what a year it's been. And he got up there and thanked his family. He's got 5 kids, and his wife is smoking hot. I mean, can you beat that? What a guy. Brian Dable came from the Buffalo Bills and takes over the New York Giants job, a major market. Takes Saquon Barkley, puts him back into the offense. Daniel Jones gets a little bit more freedom, and the New York Giants are in the playoffs. Now, they beat up on Minnesota, and they got rung up a little bit in the next round by Philadelphia, who is really, really good. If you haven't seen the Philadelphia Eagles play, obviously you know they're in the Super Bowl, but Philadelphia is really, really good, and they took it to the New York Giants. Third time they beat them this year. So Brian Dable is your Coach of the Year. Patrick Mahomes is your MVP. Your Offensive Rookie Player of the Year, your Defensive Rookie Player of the Year, come from the same team. That defense that Robert Saleh has for the New York Jets, he came from the 49ers, where he had created a top 5 defense, and he implemented those principles into the New York Jets defense. Now, their quarterback, that's a whole nother issue. This team should have been in the playoffs if they got any kind of quarterback play. But Sauce Gardner on the defensive side, shout out University of Cincinnati. You've got a couple of representatives in the Super Bowl named Kelsey, both Travis and Jason. And then Garrett Wilson, their wide receiver, 1,000 yards receiving. How he caught 1,000 yards with the quarterbacks that they have playing for the New York Jets is beyond me. You should get the Presidential Medal of Freedom if you're going to do something like that with the New York Jets quarterbacks. It's unbelievable. So 2 teammates win. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, one offensively, one defensively. The Defensive Player of the Year, kind of a landslide and kind of surprising considering the year that Hassan Reddick had for the Philadelphia Eagles with 16 sacks. But Nick Bosa was the best defensive player of the year. 19.5 sacks. Yeah, the 49ers lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, but they don't count those stats and they don't count those games when they make the votes. So Nick Bosa, the Defensive Player of the Year. Patrick Mahomes, the Offensive Player of the Year. Brian Dable, the Coach of the Year. Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, the Rookies of the Year, one on offense, one on defense. The first time it's ever happened from the same team for offensive and defensive Rookies of the Year. So the awards on the field aside, I want to talk about the most important award of the night and what a group it is. And I don't have all the names in front of me, but each team nominates a man for the Walter Payton Award, the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award for all they do off the field. Yesterday, Dak Prescott won the award. Dak Prescott gave a very heartfelt speech. Say what you want about him on the football field. Say what you want to say about him as a quarterback. But what he's doing for the community of Dallas and for his community in Mississippi and for people all over is just remarkable. And we know he lost his mom to cancer 5 years ago when he was just getting out of college. His dad is somewhere around in that Mississippi area. And of course, he lost a brother to committed suicide as well, too, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. And so the story and the heartbreak that goes with Dak Prescott is really something to see how he's overcome. And his foundation, and this is really important, his foundation does a lot of good work. He said if one life of his brother is going to save 1 million, then that's the goal that we have to do that. All right. So that being said, the NFL honors take place. The game itself on Sunday night, props to Dak Prescott. I didn't want to gloss over that, but props to Dak Prescott. I'm not a Cowboys fan, not a Cowboys fan of the team. I'm not a Jerry Jones fan. I like the way they play. They've won me some money. I'm not going to lie about that, but they're not my favorite team. But the individual players that they have on that team all do good work. Ezekiel Elliott, he got the Red Barrel, whatever that is, the Salvation Army going a few years ago on that Thanksgiving Day. Now they do that every year. Prescott, ever since he took over for Tony Romo, has been pretty good, not great. They've only got one playoff win, and it happened. And it happened the week before. It happened a few years back, and then they played the who did they play? I'm trying to remember who they played. The Dallas Cowboys played somebody. I forgot. And then they went to San Francisco and got beat up by San Francisco. So, no, that was their only game. They lost to San Francisco, and that's the way it went. So, anyway, back to Dak Prescott. Walter Payton Man of the Year, well-deserved. I know of a few of the stories. I don't have the list in front of me, as I said, but a good story for Dak Prescott. Congratulations to him. All right, let's get to the game. The line has moved a little bit. It hasn't moved very much. It's basically stayed at 1 or 1.5 as of the last hour that I checked on, thanks to my friend Tony Bruno. They're down in Radio Row. He's doing the Tony Bruno Show on No Filter Network. Was on with him for a couple seconds. And, of course, he's a Philly guy. Those of you that know the radio legend, the media mogul, the media legend, Tony Bruno. And his fiancee, Robin Maloney Austin, Miss Robin, to the radio land and the TV land out there. Philadelphia 1.5 versus Kansas City, 51 the total. The game on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern from Glendale, Arizona. The line has not moved back towards Kansas City. It's either stayed at 1 or gone to 1.5. However, the over/under has gone from 48.5 to 51, where it sits now. What do you all think on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, YouTube as well, too? As we're live right now on the VPartySports Podcast, what do you think about Philadelphia, Kansas City on Sunday? 1.5 points, 51 the total. From Glendale, I know a lot of colleagues, a lot of friends down in Phoenix this week. I wish I could have made it down there. It would have been a lot of fun. Legalized sports wagering in Arizona, certainly a key component for my interest to get down there as well. I have changed my mind 4 or 5 times already this week on who I'm going to take in this game. So nothing like paralysis by analysis, right? So probably another day and a half, 24 more hours to analyze some more, and then come up with maybe a random guess at the end, because this is a really good game between two great teams, two quarterbacks. We know they're coming off injuries. Defensive line for Philadelphia has been terrific. Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, the cornerbacks and safeties, the secondary led by Darius Slade Jr. They've been great all year. Their linebackers are maybe the only question of that defense, but boy, the way they put up points and the way they outscore teams, the way they take the will out of other teams' offenses has something to say. Kansas City defensively, they're going to get Ladarius Sneed back. He went out in the Cincinnati game, middle of the second quarter, and you could see the change in defense from when he was in to when he was out. Chris Jones on the defensive line, he was nominated for Defensive Player of the Year as well, too. He's on that front line. They've got pass rushers galore. Their linebackers may have a little lacking in terms of their defense. They do give up a lot of yards, and they did give up a lot of points. They were the worst team for a winning team to cover the point spread in their games this year. I think they were 5-12 or 6-11 in terms of points against the number. And most of the time they were a favorite. I can't think of any time that they were an underdog. I think they were an underdog against Buffalo at home. They lost that game. And they might have been an underdog in one other game. I can't remember that, but I'll have all that for you on Sunday as well, too. So the Philadelphia Eagles, fly, Eagles, fly, against Chief Kingdoms, Kansas City Chiefs, 1.5 the line for Philadelphia, 51 The total, Fox on Sunday, 6:30 Eastern from Glendale, Arizona. All right, that's your preview. Don't forget Daily Post coming up at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific today. We'll have a show for you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. NFL, NBA, NCAA, NHL. The Daily Post will be at 11 on Saturdays. I like to do multiple posts with all the college basketball that there is on Saturdays. But we are getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday this weekend. You can reach me at VPartySports, the VPartySports Podcast with Vasu Vaddiparty. All right, when we come back in 1 minute, college basketball. We'll review Thursday night college basketball on the week that was. Talked about the NBA a little bit. LeBron James becomes the all-time leading scorer. The Boston Celtics and Milwaukee Bucks are fighting out for first place. The Bucks are red hot right now, and they took it to the Lakers last night. The Denver Nuggets had a tough game against Orlando. They're holding off the Memphis Grizzlies right now in the number 1 spot in the Western Conference. And have you seen 4-10 in the standings in the West? They're all separated by 3 games in the loss column. Break it down for you when we come back on the VPartySports Podcast. Vasu Vaddiparty here with you on this Friday afternoon, live from San Jose. If you missed any of the information, don't forget there's replays coming on after this as well until tip-offs and face-offs tonight. Back with you in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the VParty Sports Podcast, live from San Jose, California, my home office. Wish I was in Arizona. Hello to everybody out there in Arizona, all my colleagues and friends enjoying Media Week, Radio Row Week down there. Of course, all in preparation for Sunday afternoon, 4:30 local time there for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles on Fox at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Rihanna, the halftime show, and 2,000 hours of pregame show. Physically impossible, but it's going to seem like 2,000 hours of pregame show, both on Fox and Fox Sports 1, starting, I think, about 5 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time. So 8 o'clock in the morning, they're going to start on the East Coast. So that's where we're at right now with that. Have a full preview on Sunday, all the injury reports, all the matchups, everything you need to know about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Cheesesteaks versus barbecue. That's what we're going to look at right now. Andy Reid coached the Philadelphia Eagles for 13 seasons, coaching the Kansas City Chiefs now for 10 seasons. Travis Kelce, tight end for the Chiefs. His brother, Jason Kelce, center for the Philadelphia Eagles, all-pro center, I might add. Travis Kelce, all-pro tight end. They're not going to play against each other because they're both on offense, but it's going to be a first where brothers have played against each other that have played prominent roles in their team's success. And Jason Kelce is outstanding, taking control of that offensive line. And the numbers just dictate the Travis Kelce story as we go on, both from University of Cincinnati. So Cincinnati must be proud a little bit in some way, even though their Bengals lost 2 weeks ago on the Harrison Butker kick. So Philadelphia, Kansas City, Sunday afternoon. 1.5 for Philadelphia right now. The total at 51 for Sunday afternoon. All right, let's move on to college basketball. Let's hit the Big Ten here real quick. Last night, the Big Ten, 2-0 for me. 87-73. Purdue continues to show why they're the number 1 team in the country. 87-73. They built the lead up to as much as 17. Got it down to 9 at Iowa. Point spread wise, 7.5 was a little too scary for me. But Braden Smith had 24 for Purdue. They win by 14, and they cover. 87-73. Northwestern gets a road win. This is the makeup game that they had against Ohio State that was canceled 2 weeks ago for all the COVID issues that Northwestern was experiencing. They had to cancel 3 games, so this is the third of the 3 games that they made up. They go into Ohio State, 5.5-point underdog, take Northwestern. They improve to 17-7. They are well on their way to a tournament. If they don't screw this thing up down stretch, they are well on their way to their second ever tournament appearance. The first one was 3 years ago when they were where were they playing? I forget where they were playing, but some of my Northwestern friends can tell me where they were playing that opening round game, because this will be the second time, both under Chris Collins' tenure, the former Duke Blue Devil, son of Doug Collins, a great NBA player as well, but Chris Collins making his own mark in the coaching world. Boo Buie scored 19, and Barnheiser scored a career-high 19 as well, 69-63. Justice Swing had 19 points for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay, standings-wise, Purdue is 12-2. They're 3 games better than Rutgers at 8-5. Michigan, Northwestern, Indiana, all 8-5. Illinois is at 7-5. Michigan State and Iowa and Maryland all at 7-6. Maryland had been playing well. Iowa was not playing well, and they got beat up yesterday. Michigan State came off a big win over Maryland the other night. Illinois had a tough one. Indiana has been playing better lately. And then Northwestern, we talked about. Michigan, they're kind of the surprise right now. They've got the best winning streak of anybody in the conference. They've won 3 in a row. And last week against Ohio State, that was a big one. Well, this Saturday, they're going to have another big one as they host Indiana, who's red hot. They're going to be hosting Indiana on Saturday. What time is that game at? I believe it's on ESPN. 6 o'clock Eastern, number 18, Indiana Hoosiers go into Michigan, take on a pretty hot Michigan Wolverine team right now. But before that, Wisconsin will be at Nebraska. Wisconsin 14-9, Nebraska 11-14. Rutgers, the second best team in the conference right now by virtue of tiebreakers. They're at Illinois. They're at Illinois. They are fighting it out. 16-7 for Illinois, 16-8 for Rutgers in the standings. As we said, Rutgers at 8-5, Illinois at 7-5. So it's a big game as far as seeding goes for the Big Ten. And then to open up the day in the Big Ten, Penn State will be at Maryland. Now, I don't have lines yet. It's only Friday afternoon. We'll have them tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. We'll have all the lines, and they'll scroll across to the bottom of the ticker, and it'll give you more detail of those games. But that's what happened in the Big Ten yesterday. Purdue and Northwestern getting both their wins. All right. Pac-12 has seen a bunch of games last night. Usually Thursday nights, it's Big Ten, Pac-12, and WCC night. So lots of things to talk about in the Pac-12. UCLA got a 15-point win over Oregon State. They did not cover. I believe they were a 17-point favorite, if I remember right. 15.5, so just missed. UCLA over Oregon State. The game did stay under. They limited Oregon State to 47 points. Amari Bailey had 24, but it was a cruising session. Up by 13 at the half and only outscored them by 2 in the second half, so they did not cover. 62-47, UCLA over Oregon State. Arizona went into Cal as a 17-point favorite. They blew them out by 23, 85-62. The Arizona Wildcats, Tavelis had 23 points and 14 rebounds. Also had 4 steals. Cal is just awful. They're 3-21 right now, but they do find ways to cover, and they almost did here. Arizona, 22-3 overall. In USC, I had it as my game of the night, and they just came out and looked awful. They got beat up by Oregon by 18, 78-60 Oregon over USC. USC was never in this game, down 15 at the half. Had a chance maybe in the second half. Dante had 17 for Oregon on 8 of 11 shooting, and Boogie Ellis had 19. Let's see what the shooting was. It looked like Oregon couldn't miss from everything that I saw. They shot 54% from the field and 33% from threes. Meanwhile, USC, abysmal 41% and only 25% from the three-point line. And then my other game of the night last night, Arizona State, down 7 midway through the second half. They make a comeback. They were tied at the half at 33. They beat Stanford 69-65 as DJ Horn scored 8 points in Arizona State's closing 14-2 run. That's what it was, a 14-2 run over Stanford. They rallied for a 69-65. So if they won by 4 and 14-2, so it's 12. So they were down 8. I said 7, but they were down 8, 69-65, Arizona State over Stanford. And the standings in the Pac-12, get to the games on Saturday. UCLA, half game better than Arizona, 11-2 versus 11-3. USC, 9-4. Oregon, Utah, 9-5, and 8-6 for Arizona State. So Arizona State still in the mix. The Saturday schedule: USC at Oregon State, Arizona at Stanford, Arizona State at Cal, UCLA at Oregon, the big game of the night, Colorado at Utah, and University of Washington at Washington State. They didn't play Thursday, neither one of them did, because they're playing each other this weekend. So there you go, University of Washington and Washington State. So that's your Pac-12. Moving on to the WCC. Last night in the WCC, if that St. Mary's lost to Portland, I believe. No, Loyola Marymount. Loyola Marymount, the Giant Killers. They've beaten Duke. They beat Gonzaga. They ended Gonzaga's 78-game home winning streak. and they ended up also beating St. Mary's in overtime, 78-74. St. Mary's got off to a 12-0 start of the game, and you thought it was going to be easy. They were laying 6 points. 127.5 was the total, but the overtime, 26 points in the overtime, so it would have been right around the number for the total if the overtime hadn't taken into place. 152 it ended up, and Loyola Marymount, 17-9, 21-5 at St. Mary's, and not only does it do damage to St. Mary's, they're still in first place. They beat Gonzaga last week, so the high of beating Gonzaga at home last week to the low of Loyola Marymount beating them. Now, Loyola Marymount has St. Mary's in their belt, have Gonzaga in their belt. And standings-wise, it's Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Gonzaga has 2 conference losses. St. Mary's at 10-1. Santa Clara 6-5. Loyola Marymount now 7-5 in third place. Santa Clara 6-5. BYU 6-6 as the top 5 teams there in the WCC. So basically, it's St. Mary's and Gonzaga. Maybe you get a third team in if Loyola Marymount, Santa Clara keep playing well, as they are right now. Santa Clara came back with a win last night. They beat USD 80-75. Did not cover the 11.5 against the San Diego Toreros. BYU lost at Pepperdine 92-80. They were a 5-point favorite. Portland 81-73 victory over UOP, and then Gonzaga 14-point favorite over USF. They win by 18. Thought USF would give them a better game than that, but they didn't. So that's where we're at with college basketball right now on the Pac-12, the WCC, and the Big Ten Conference. All right, real quick, the games we'll preview tomorrow. In the ACC, North Carolina State at Boston College, Pitt and FSU, Virginia Tech at Notre Dame, Clemson and North Carolina. That's going to be one of the bigger games. Duke and Virginia, that game always has big meaning for the ACC. And then Georgia Tech at Wake Forest, Louisville at Miami. Miami just ran away with the game on Monday night, where they beat up on Duke 81-59. Miami, very good. They're number 19 in the country, standings wise in the ACC. Right now, it's Clemson, Pitt, and Virginia, all at 10-3. Miami at 10-4, and it's good race. North Carolina State 9-5, and Duke at 8-5. So a lot can happen in the ACC. All right, in the American Conference, Eastern Carolina will be at Tulane, Tulsa will be at USF, and at UCF, and then USF South Florida will be at Cincinnati. As we look at the standings in the American Conference, Houston a 2-game lead over Tulane, 11-1, 9-3. Houston, the number 2 team in the country. All the games, 3 games tomorrow. There'll be some on Sunday as well too. We'll talk about the Sunday games. Temple, Memphis, SMU, and Wichita State on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. These games, all these basketball games, all these hockey games are going to be all done by the time the Super Bowl starts at 3:30 West Coast time here. So that's your AAC schedule. We'll have the lines again for all these conferences coming up on Saturday's show. Big 12, West Virginia at Texas, Kansas at Oklahoma, Baylor at TCU. That's going to be a really good game, Baylor at TCU. TCU starting to play a little bit better, and Baylor, look at what they've done over the week. Oklahoma State, who did not cover the other night, but they're going to be at Iowa State. They owe Iowa State a victory after the last one. Iowa State owes them a victory after the last time that they had a lead, but Oklahoma State came back at the end, got some key free throws, and beat them on their home court, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And then Kansas State will be at Texas Tech. That will be the Big 12 schedule rolled out this week standings-wise. Texas leads now at 8-3. Iowa State and Kansas and Baylor and Kansas State, all 7-4. 6-5 is Oklahoma State. TCU is 6-5. And then West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech all near the bottom as far as the Big 12 goes. All right, let's get to the Big East. We got one game in the Big East today. It's Xavier. They're 7-point favorite at Butler, 145 the total. Saturday, Marquette at Georgetown, Providence at St. John's, UConn at Creighton, Seton Hall at Villanova. And standings-wise, Xavier and Marquette lead the way, 11-2 Xavier. Marquette 11-3. They got beat up the other night badly by Connecticut. And Creighton, Providence 10-3 apiece. And then it drops down to 8-6 for Seton Hall and UConn. And then Villanova, St. John's, Butler, DePaul, and Georgetown round out the Big East. All right, the MAC Conference, We got 2 games in the MAC today. Very underrated conference, the Mid-American Conference right now. It's Kent State, Toledo, and Akron. They're all 9-2. Ball State right there in 4th at 8-3. So these next few weeks are going to be huge in the MAC Conference. So 2 games today. Kent State at Buffalo. They're a 4-point favorite, 153 the total. And then Akron, a 2-point favorite at Ohio University, 144.5. Both Akron and Kent, both 9-2. Akron, Toledo beat Akron the other night, and Kent State got a small victory the other night as well, too. So that's where we're at in the MAC Conference. Moving on to the Missouri Valley Conference, another very underrated conference is the Missouri Valley Conference. Look at the standings here. Drake, Southern Illinois, Bradley, all 11-4. Belmont and Indiana State, both 10-5. Missouri State, 9-6. 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the top 6 teams in the Missouri Valley Conference. Scores coming up. The games coming up is Indiana State at Northern Iowa, Southern Illinois at Drake, Illinois Chicago at Belmont, Murray State at Bradley, and Illinois State at Valparaiso. So those are your Missouri Valley Conference games. The last few games they had, Missouri State beat Belmont by 2, Indiana State all over Valparaiso, Southern Illinois by 2 over UIC, Evansville by 12 over Northern Iowa, and Bradley, a big win over Illinois State in the Missouri Valley Conference. So we are about 3 weeks away, almost a month away from March Madness Selection Sunday, and all these teams are still fighting to get up there. A lot of these conferences are one-bid leagues, but there's going to be a case made for some of these teams to get more than one bid from each conference. All right, Mountain West. 2 games tonight in the Mountain West. Actually, 3 games tonight in the Mountain West, I think. No, 2 games tonight. New Mexico, a 6.5-point favorite at Air Force, 140 the total. Nevada, Reno, 9-point favorite. Big win they had the other night at New Mexico. 131.5 the total versus Fresno State. Saturday, UNLV at San Diego State. San Diego State also got a big win at New Mexico. Wyoming at Boise State, and Utah State will visit San Jose State tomorrow night. San Diego State 10-2, Nevada 9-3, Boise 8-3, and Utah State 8-4, and then it drops down from there. New Mexico 6-5, probably too far away from a conference title, but they're playing well. They've got 19 wins, and you can see maybe 2 teams, maybe 3 teams coming out of the Mountain West in terms of the tournament. The SEC now, we get to the SEC. SEC, people still think the SEC might be one of the better conferences. They've got some of the better teams, but I think top to bottom, this is still a Big 12 conference as far as SEC basketball goes. Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, the Iron Bowl on the basketball court, Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Texas A&M, LSU. Alabama still undefeated in conference at 11-0. They're 2 better than Texas A&M. Tennessee 8-3. Auburn and Kentucky 7-4 apiece. So that's where you have it. And then Missouri, Florida, Arkansas 6-5. But Arkansas, the net 30 ranking, they just beat Kentucky earlier in the week. And with them beating Kentucky, they're in the net rank top 30. So even though they're at 6-5, maybe 1 or 2 more wins, but they should be a tournament team. Alabama dumped Florida by 28 the other night. Mississippi State beat LSU. Tennessee lost to Vanderbilt, so that didn't help them at all. Well, that was all Wednesday night. Texas A&M beat Auburn. Ole Miss beat Georgia. Missouri over South Carolina. And then the Arkansas game, the upset over Kentucky, 88-73. Kentucky is 7-4, so they're not that far back in second place, but Alabama running away with it in the SEC. We talked about the WCC, the games for Sunday. St. Mary's at Portland, Loyola Marymount at Santa Clara, BYU at Georgetown, Pepperdine at USF, and University of San Diego will be in Stockton at UOP. So there's your basketball wrap for this Friday. Again, we'll have all the lines, we'll have all the daily posts, we'll have the pick segment for Saturday and Sunday college basketball. A huge day in college basketball in the nation tomorrow. Of course, it's all predicated on Super Bowl Sunday coming up. But when we come back in 30 seconds, we'll hit the NBA real quick. We'll give you the lines for today. We'll talk a little NHL before we wrap up the show. Vasu Vaddiparty here at VPartySports on the VPartySports Podcast, live this Friday afternoon from San Jose, California. Back in 30 with the NBA and NHL wrap before we get out of here. Back with you for the final segment of the VPartySports Podcast on this Friday afternoon. We are live. If you missed any of the information, Super Bowl Sunday, obviously this Sunday, college basketball, NBA and NHL. We'll talk about in a second, but that's a big weekend we've got coming on. Let me go through my records here for the week. By the way, the Daily Post with your best bets come up at 6 Eastern on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I am coming into the week, one game over 500, 220 and 219, and 8 pushes, 11, 16, 22, 22 and 24 for the week. It's hard. We want all the information. Be careful. Don't overanalyze. Don't do paralysis by analysis. But 2 games under. Now with football ending, I'm 17 and 11 and 18 and 11 in football. So it's had an over 500 record, almost nearly 60%. That'll win you some money if you take my advice in the NFL basketball, college basketball. Now we can focus on that and the NBA as well, too. Man, I don't know. What do you think? I think I got a bad haircut. It looks all right. Or maybe I just can't look at myself. What do you think, everybody? I don't know how else to look at it. I'm just fiddling around with it this whole time. Anyway, the Daily Post with your best bets at 6 Eastern. 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I got a like, so let's see. Maybe it was on the haircut comment. Let's see. Doesn't tell me who it was. Maybe whoever that is can give me a comment on that. All right, let's hit the NBA. We got 2 screens of the NBA, full slate. Saturday and Sunday, there won't be as many games. Standings wise, the Celtics 39 and 16, 1 game better than the Milwaukee Bucks, who were 38 and 17. The Bucks, the hottest team in basketball right now. They've won 9 in a row. They demolished the Lakers yesterday, 114. What was it? 115 to 106. LeBron James, after breaking the all-time record on Tuesday night, did not play Thursday. So they were hamstrung. Anthony Davis played okay, but they were up and they were big. 58-50 at the half. The Lakers had the lead, but Giannis and company got going in the third quarter, outscored the Lakers by 15 in the third, and then outscored them by 2 in the fourth. They end up covering. The line went from 4 for Milwaukee all the way to 8.5 once LeBron James was ruled out of the game. It went to 8.5. The total went to 234.5, so it stayed under the total, which you figured that was pretty easy under once LeBron James was not going to play. 38 for Giannis in that game as well. Chicago Bulls, the Nets are, what's going on with the Nets? I mean, they play well. There's no Irving. He's gone to Dallas. Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix 2 days ago. We all know that. Who are they playing with? Well, they beat the Chicago Bulls. They got Spencer Dinwiddie back, 25 points for Dinwiddie, and he returned from Dallas back to Brooklyn, where he spent a majority of his career. I'm just looking to see the box score here. Who's playing for the Nets? Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Sharp, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas had 20. Cam Thomas is going to be a good player. He's just got to learn to keep his mouth shut. He just got fined $40,000. Joe Harris, 18 points, and Watanabe, who's very underrated, 14 for the Nets. DeRozan played. He had 14. Vucevic had 15. Zach LaVine went off for 38, but they didn't shoot very. They shot 46%, only 5 of 26 from threes. They had a lead. They were 2.5 point favorite at 227. The total stayed under, and the Nets ended up winning. So go figure that. Now here's the Hawks, a team I can't figure out, the Atlanta Hawks. They have all this talent, but they're at 500. They win over the Suns last night. The Suns are completely hamstrung. They don't have Durant yet. They traded Mikal Bridges away, their third best player, now with Durant there, but now he's gone. Let's see. He was shorthanded. Monty Williams said, all the more eager to see Kevin Durant in a Suns uniform. 116 to 107. Atlanta covers the 7-point spread. It actually ended up at 8. 226.5. The total stayed under. Atlanta had a 17-point lead at one time. Phoenix came back, made a march on them. Ayton had 23. Paul had 15. Josh Okogie, 25 off the bench. How about that? There you go. There you go for your Phoenix Suns followers. Josh Okogie is not going to make you forget about Kevin Durant or Mikal Bridges, but he did come off and was very effective last night. 9 of 17, 3 of 6 shooting. Balance for Atlanta, the triumvirate of Murray, Collins, and Young. 71 points amongst the three of them, 36 for Trae Young. Okongwu off the bench had 11. Capella had 17 rebounds. So it was a pretty balanced attack, and they went after Phoenix a little bit shorthanded. But they're 28 and 28. They should be better than 28 and 28. As I look at the standings, the Atlanta Hawks are in 8th place. They're 28 and 28. 2 games back of the Knicks, 3 games back of the Heat, who are in 6th. And Brooklyn, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Boston are there. So that's where we have it going on there. And then the last game, the Magic overcame a 12-0 deficit to open the game. They beat the Denver Nuggets 115-104. Orlando can play. They've got guys in that team that can play. They cover a lot. They win these games at home that you don't expect them to win. Cole Anthony and Bull each scored 17, 115-104 win over the Nuggets. They led in every quarter except for the third, where they got outscored by 5. Denver was a 5-point favorite, 230 the total, so it stayed under. Did Jokic play last night? I don't think he played last night. He did play last night. 29 for Jokic, 37 for Aaron Gordon, but not enough. Are they going to get a third scorer? Do they need a third scorer? Looks like they do. 19 for Wendell Carter Jr., who I was down on for a long time, coming out of Duke, and he played for the Bulls for a few years, but he's turned himself into a really good player, and I enjoy watching his game. Wendell Carter Jr. of the Orlando Magic. Banchero had 11. Franz Wagner had 10. And then Suggs had 11 as well, too. So 12 for Mo Wagner, 17 for Bull and Anthony, both of those coming off the bench as well, too. So there you have it. There's your NBA lead-in going into tonight. Philadelphia, New York, Detroit, San Antonio, Indiana versus that hamstrung Phoenix Suns team. Toronto, 7.5 versus Utah. Boston, 11.5 versus Charlotte. Memphis, 7 versus Minnesota. What's Memphis going to do? Torn between if they're contenders, pretenders. They're second in the Western Conference right now. And I'm just trying to figure it out, because without Steven Adams, they don't have any defensive presence right now. And they're trying to make trades to get them to that spot. Miami 12 over Houston. Houston, the worst record in the NBA, 220.5. The Cleveland Cavaliers, 3-point favorites at New Orleans. Still no sign of Zion Williamson. The All-Star break is next week, so you got to think that he's going to be coming back after the All-Star break. Cleveland 4th in the East, 3 and 223 the total there. Portland gets Oklahoma City 3.5, 239.5. I keep saying Oklahoma City, the best team to cover as an underdog, whether they're at home or on the road. Didn't make me look good the other night against the Warriors. They got beat up by 27 the other night. Dallas gets Luka Doncic back tonight. They're a 1-point favorite in Sacramento. Is Sacramento still not getting any respect? They lead the Pacific Division, and they lead the Pacific Division. They're in 3rd overall. They're right above Dallas, 3 games better than Dallas in the win-loss column, 31 and 23. They're 16 and 11 at home, and Dallas is 11 and 17 on the road. And you're telling me the Dallas Mavericks are a 1-point favorite? 236 I can see on the total, because the Kings score. They don't play a lot of great defense, but they have been. Fourth quarters, the last few games for the Kings have been very good because they have played the defense. And then after the last night's win against the Lakers, Milwaukee stays in Los Angeles. We'll visit the Los Angeles Clippers. They're a 2-point underdog, are the Bucks, 227. They've won 9 in a row, as we said. What LA Clippers team is this going to be? They're 7-3 in their last 10, but they're 31 and 27. And a lot of people think they should be better than what their record says at 31 and 27. So Denver at 18 losses, Memphis at 21, and you got Sacramento at 23. From 4 to 10, and even Utah and Oklahoma City at 11 and 12, there is a 2-game difference, a 3-game difference in the loss column between Dallas, the Clippers, Phoenix, New Orleans, Minnesota, Golden State, Portland, Utah, and Oklahoma City. And the Lakers are 5 back in 11th, 12th, in 13th place in the Western Conference. In the East, it's a little bit more separated, though Cleveland and Brooklyn both have 22 losses. Miami has 25. New York, Atlanta, Chicago, and Toronto, all within 4 losses of each other. New York at 26 losses in 7th place. Atlanta at 28 losses. Chicago 29 losses. Toronto 30. Washington has 29 losses, but they don't have enough games. They don't have enough wins. And then Indiana on the outside looking in at 31 losses, 25 and 31. That game against Phoenix tonight as well. All right, so there's your NBA. Daily Post coming up at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Let's hit the hockey real quick. 4 games in hockey. The Rangers 190-6 over Seattle. Toronto 255 at Columbus. 6.5 the total. Chicago Blackhawks, my Blackhawks, minus 110 versus Arizona. 6 the total there. And then the Pittsburgh Penguins, a mighty favorite on the road. 255 on the road. 6.5 the total. Road teams are favored today, minus 190. Goals, Grand Salami, 25.5 total number of goals scored in every game. Road teams favored. That's the net difference in goals for the Grand Salami version of hockey. In the NHL, standings wise, the Carolina Panthers are the hottest team in hockey right now. They've won 7 in a row. They are 34-9-8. They're 76 points. They are actually in line to possibly catch the Boston Bruins, who we thought were unreachable. 83 points is where Boston is at. 39-7-5. Those are the 2 stories right now. The New Jersey Devils have been playing very well too. 34-13-4. They've got 72 points. So you're looking at only 4 teams that have 70 points or better. The Toronto Maple Leafs are 4th in that category. They have 70 points. They have 70 points on their ledger, and they're 2nd in the Atlantic Conference, 13 back of the Boston Bruins. And then New Jersey is 4 points back of Carolina. In the West, the Dallas Stars are 30-13. They've got 70 points. They've won 2 in a row. They're on national TV tomorrow. I think they got Tampa Bay tomorrow. Winnipeg has played well this year. They're at 65 points, 32-19-1. In the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights have gotten all their pieces back. They had a big win against Minnesota yesterday, 31-18-4 for Vegas in the Pacific Division. And how about that Seattle Kraken? 29-17-5. They're at 63 points. They're tied with Edmonton at 63 points, along with Los Angeles, are only 3 points back of Vegas. So that's a hot and heavy Pacific Division race right now in the NHL. The 4 games, as we said, Rangers, Kraken, Maple Leafs, the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks host the Coyotes, and the Penguins will visit the Mighty Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks, I should say, on the road in Anaheim late night tonight at the Pond in Anaheim, California. All right. Daily Post with your best bets will be on at 6 Eastern on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget, we'll have replays of this show for anything that you missed. Coming up all afternoon until face-offs and tip-offs in the NHL and the NBA. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. NFL, NBA, NCAA, NHL. A lot of NCAA tomorrow. The NBA will have a major schedule tomorrow. There's only 2 games on Sunday. Same with the NHL. College basketball will have a slightly varied schedule on Sunday as well, too. So everybody's going to play tomorrow, and then we get ready for Super Bowl Sunday between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram for all your support. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate the likes. Feel free to reach out at VPartySports if you need to contact me directly for sponsorships or any inquiries, or just in general, just reach out to me at VPartySports. Have a great afternoon. Good luck with your games. Don't forget Daily Post with the Best Bets segment coming up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your day. We will see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, right here on the VPartySports Podcast.